He woke up to the shrill sound of his alarm, feeling the familiar weight of exhaustion from another long night. The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the building settling. He rubbed his eyes, thinking about the long day ahead. Being a single dad was not easy. Every day felt like a balancing act between work, his child, and keeping some semblance of a personal life. He got out of bed, careful not to step on the scattered toys his child had left behind the night before, and started his morning routine. Breakfast was a hurried affair. He prepared a bowl of cereal and a glass of juice while glancing at the clock. Time was always slipping away, and he felt the pressure to be efficient in every little task. His child, half asleep, shuffled into the kitchen and gave him a sleepy smile, which somehow made the exhaustion worth it. After breakfast, it was time to get ready for work, and he quickly checked his phone for messages. Scrolling through notifications, he noticed the usual reminders from work. A few messages from friends, and some updates from social media. His life felt like a constant stream of responsibilities, and personal time was a rare luxury. He sighed, thinking about how much he missed the days when life felt lighter. His mind wandered to memories of his past relationship, the laughter and the warmth that once filled his life. But those memories were tinged with regret and a quiet sadness that he carried silently. The day at work was long and exhausting, filled with meetings, emails, and endless tasks that demanded his attention. He tried to focus, but his mind often wandered back to his child. Wondering if they had eaten lunch, if they had smiled today, if they felt his absence. The thought of being away from them for hours weighed heavily on him. Despite the stress, he pushed through, determined to finish the day and get back to the small but precious moments of parenthood. By the time the workday ended, he was drained. The commute home was a blur of traffic lights and honking cars, and he barely noticed the scenery passing by. When he finally reached his apartment, the familiar smell of home greeted him, and he felt a small wave of relief. His child ran to him with open arms, and for a brief moment, all the stress melted away. He held them close, inhaling the faint scent of shampoo and childhood innocence, feeling a sense of purpose and love that made everything worthwhile. After dinner, he settled on the couch, finally allowing himself a moment to relax. His child was busy with a coloring book, their small hands moving carefully as they filled the pages with bright colors. He watched them for a while, smiling softly, before reaching for his phone to catch up on messages. That was when he made the mistake. He intended to send a quick text to a friend, someone he trusted to share a laugh and lighten the mood. But in the hurried moments, his fingers slipped, and he accidentally sent the message to his ex's sister instead. Immediately, panic set in. His heart raced, and he felt a sudden rush of embarrassment. What would she think? How would she react? He stared at the screen, willing her not to respond, hoping that perhaps she wouldn't notice or that she would ignore the message. But deep down, he knew that was unlikely. She was someone who noticed details, who paid attention to even the smallest things. The thought of having to explain himself made him break out in a nervous sweat. For a long moment, there was silence. The only sounds were the faint rustle of pages as his child colored and the ticking of the clock on the wall. He debated whether to send a follow-up message to apologize immediately or wait and see if she would respond. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, uncertain and anxious. The accidental message felt like a small mistake, with potentially large consequences. He replayed the scenario in his mind, imagining the worst possible reactions and feeling a sinking sensation in his stomach. Finally, his phone buzzed. She had replied. His heart leaped and then sank at the same time. He opened the message carefully, almost afraid of what it might say. But her words were not what he expected. They were calm, measured, and surprisingly neutral. She did not scold him or mock him. Instead, she responded in a way that was almost ... thoughtful. It caught him off guard, leaving him unsure of how to continue the conversation as the evening went on. Their brief exchange revealed hints about her personality that he had never noticed before. She was quiet, careful with her words, and seemed to have a depth that he had overlooked in the past. Through her messages, he began to sense a story, a perspective he had never considered, about his ex and the family dynamics that had always been a mystery to him. He found himself reading and rereading her messages. Trying to understand the subtlety and meaning behind each word, there was a strange mix of emotions, swirling inside him: curiosity, anxiety, and a growing sense of empathy. He realized that he had known so little about the people around him, even those closest to his past life. The accidental message had opened a door he didn't know existed, a glimpse into a world of thoughts and feelings he had never considered. It made him reflect on his own actions, the choices he had made, and the things he had assumed without knowing the full story. The night grew later, but he remained on the couch, unable to pull himself away from the conversation. His child eventually fell asleep, their soft breathing filling the room with a comforting rhythm. He sat there, staring at his phone, feeling a mix of relief and anticipation. The accidental message had started something unexpected, something that might change the way he saw his past, his family, and himself. He thought about how life often had a way of surprising people, how small mistakes could lead to revelations, and how connections could form in the most unlikely ways. The evening had started like any other, with the familiar routines and quiet struggles of a single dad. But now, it had taken a turn into something unknown, a path that promised both challenge and insight. He realized that he was at the beginning of a journey, one that would test his emotions, his patience, and his understanding of the people he thought he knew. As he finally set his phone aside and prepared for bed, he felt a strange mix of exhaustion and excitement. The accidental message had been just a small action, a momentary slip of the fingers, but it carried the potential to uncover truths he had never imagined. He lay down, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what tomorrow might bring. The quiet of the apartment felt different now, charged with possibility and the promise of discovery. And for the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of anticipation, wondering where this unexpected path might lead him next. The next morning, he woke up with a lingering sense of curiosity from the night before. His child was already awake, sitting on the floor with a small toy, smiling up at him with sleepy eyes. He felt a warmth in his chest as he knelt down to greet them. There was a lightness to their morning chatter that made him forget, for a moment, the complexities waiting outside the apartment walls. He helped them get ready for school and then quickly prepared breakfast, glancing at his phone nervously as he did so. He had been thinking about the message he had sent, wondering if he should respond again or just wait. The memory of the calm, thoughtful words from last night played over in his mind, leaving him both reassured and curious. After dropping his child off at school, he drove to work, unable to shake the thoughts of the conversation. It was strange, he realized, how someone he had barely spoken to could already influence his mood so profoundly. Her words had a quiet honesty that made him reconsider the past and reflect on the misunderstandings that had shaped his life. At work, he found it difficult to focus. Every email and meeting seemed distant, overshadowed by the subtle anticipation of their next exchange. He tried to convince himself to concentrate, but he found his mind drifting to what she might say next, to the small glimpses of her life she had hinted at. By the afternoon, he could not resist. During a short break, he opened his phone and carefully typed a response. He tried to be casual, careful not to seem too eager or intrusive. Her reply came faster than he expected. He read it slowly, savoring each word, noticing how she chose them carefully, avoiding unnecessary details but revealing just enough to pique curiosity. She mentioned small things about her daily life, almost mundane, but in a way that made him feel he was being trusted with pieces of her world. He felt a surprising sense of connection. Even though their interaction had begun as a mistake, the conversation gradually shifted, moving from casual pleasantries to subtle discussions about the family. She hinted at challenges his ex had faced, difficulties that he had never been aware of. For the first time, he saw the situation from a perspective that was not his own. Her words were careful and measured, not accusatory or judgmental. There was a quiet honesty to the way she described events, a gentle openness that made him feel both grateful and remorseful. He realized he had been blind to certain truths, and that assumptions he had made in the past were incomplete or incorrect. As the days passed, her messages became a routine. Each exchange brought him more insight, though always in small, careful increments. He learned about struggles, sacrifices, and private moments that had never been shared openly. There was a subtle wisdom in her words, quiet understanding of life's complexities that he found both comforting and humbling. He discovered that his ex had been dealing with situations he had never noticed, pressures and responsibilities that had shaped her decisions. The realization was sobering, forcing him to confront his own judgment and the way he had interpreted past events. He began to reflect deeply on his own actions, his role as a parent, and the choices he had made in the relationship. The sister's quiet honesty allowed him to see the world in a slightly different way. It was as if the accidental message had opened a door to a hidden dimension of understanding, one he could never have reached on his own. He felt both gratitude and a strange nervousness. It was delicate, this unfolding awareness. He had to navigate it carefully, respecting boundaries while also absorbing the truths that were being revealed. Meanwhile, his child noticed the change in him. He found himself more patient, more present, and strangely more thoughtful. During small moments, like helping with homework or reading a bedtime story, he found his attention more focused and his patience stretched further. It was subtle, but he knew it was because of the new perspective he was gaining. Conversations with the sister, accidental as they were shaping not only his understanding of the past, but also how he approached the present. One evening, after putting his child to bed, he settled on the couch with a cup of tea. Staring at the phone with anticipation, he typed a message, carefully chosen words that reflected a mix of curiosity and restraint. When her response appeared, he noticed a depth he had not recognized before. She spoke about responsibility, about choices, about understanding others without judgment. The quiet wisdom in her words resonated with him, creating a bridge between past misunderstandings and present clarity. He felt as if he was learning lessons he had never known he needed. The more he read her messages, the more he realized how little he had understood about his ex's world. There were moments of subtle emotion, small hints about her experiences and her challenges that illuminated the reasons behind past behaviors. He felt a mixture of regret and empathy, realizing that he had often acted without full understanding, reacting instead of observing. Her quiet words revealed the complexity of family relationships, the hidden burdens that people carried silently, and the importance of compassion. It was not long before he noticed a subtle shift in himself. He became more introspective, considering the effects of his actions on others. He thought about his parenting, his approach to work, and his daily interactions. The accidental message, which had initially caused anxiety, had transformed into a catalyst for self-reflection. He found himself more aware of the small details, more attuned to emotional nuances, and more patient with both himself and others. He felt a sense of growth, a quiet reassurance that he was moving in the right direction. Even if slowly, despite the growing connection, he remained cautious. He knew boundaries were important, and that the relationship with his ex's sister had begun by accident. He did not want to overstep or create discomfort. He respected her silence and the careful pacing of her revelations. Each message was a small piece of a larger puzzle, and he took the time to read between the lines, to understand without pushing too hard. It was a delicate balance, but he felt that the effort was worthwhile. The week passed in a blur of work, parenting, and these small, meaningful exchanges. He noticed that the conversations were shaping his mood, giving him moments of reflection that were rare in his otherwise hectic life. He began to see patterns, small consistencies in her approach. The way she shared details without oversharing, the way she encouraged thought without demanding response. It was subtle, but he recognized a quiet intelligence and empathy in her communication. Each interaction felt like a lesson, a gentle guide through understanding human behavior and relationships. One weekend, as he watched his child play in the park, he thought about the conversations and the insights he had gained. The accidental message had led to a journey of understanding that was unexpected and profound. He realized that life had a way of teaching lessons in the most surprising ways, often through mistakes or accidents. This small incident had opened his eyes to hidden truths, to empathy, and to the understanding that people were more complex than he had realized. It was humbling and enlightening at the same time. In the quiet moments at home, he found himself composing thoughtful messages, responding with care and consideration. He valued the exchange not for casual conversation alone, but for the depth it offered. He sensed that the sister's words were a window into a world he had been blind to, a perspective that he could carry forward into his own life. The process of learning, of reflecting, and of growing became intertwined with his daily routines, enriching his experience and bringing a subtle but meaningful change to his outlook. Evenings became moments of anticipation rather than exhaustion. After dinner, when his child was asleep, he would sit quietly with the phone, reading and responding, feeling a sense of connection and understanding that was rare in his life. The accidental message had transformed from a source of anxiety to a source of insight and contemplation. Each reply was a step further into understanding human emotions, relationships, in the quiet ways people reveal truths when they feel safe and unjudged. He also began to notice the effect on his daily life. He approached tasks with more patience, listened more attentively to others, and considered perspectives he might have ignored before. There was a subtle confidence that grew, a quiet awareness that came from understanding beyond the surface. The accidental message had become more than just a mistake. It was a catalyst for reflection, empathy, and emotional growth. By the end of the week, he realized that something significant had changed. He no longer saw the sister's messages as mere conversation, but as a mirror reflecting lessons and insights he needed. The calm, thoughtful exchanges had begun to reshape his understanding of people, relationships, and even himself. It was a slow, steady transformation, subtle in its progression but powerful in its effect. He understood that life often gave second chances, not always in grand gestures, but in small, quiet ways that required attention and reflection. As he lay in bed that night, thinking about the day, he felt a mix of gratitude and anticipation. The accidental message had led to something unexpected, a revelation that was slowly unfolding. He did not know what the future held or how far the connection would go, but he understood that he was on a path of learning and discovery. The calm, quiet words of the sister had become a guide, leading him through reflections on past mistakes, empathy for others, and the importance of understanding hidden truths. And for the first time in a long while, he felt a quiet hope that the accidental message was not just a mistake, but a turning point. Days passed, and the small, accidental connection continued to grow into something quietly profound. He began to notice patterns in her responses, how she didn't rush her words, how she shared things slowly, carefully, allowing him to absorb each idea before introducing another. It made him realize that there was patience in communication that he had never truly understood before. Her messages carried layers of meaning, subtle hints about struggles he had never noticed, and glimpses into family dynamics he had never understood. Each small revelation drew him deeper into reflection and thought. He learned that his ex had been facing difficulties that were hidden from him, challenges that influenced many of the choices she had made. These were not excuses, but explanations, moments that gave context to decisions he had once judged harshly. Reading about them through her sister's calm, measured words was enlightening. He felt a twinge of guilt for the times he had misunderstood and misjudged, realizing how little he had truly known. There was a quiet sadness in knowing that he had missed so much, yet also a sense of gratitude for finally seeing a different perspective. The accidental messaging had become a window into truths he could not have discovered alone. He realized how often he had acted on assumptions, how often he had failed to notice the subtle signs of struggles in those around him. Her words taught him that people often carry hidden burdens, that actions are shaped by experiences and challenges that are invisible to others. This insight reshaped how he saw not just his ex, but also himself, and the way he approached relationships in general. One evening, he found himself thinking about a message she had sent earlier in the day. It was simple, almost casual, but it carried a weight of truth he couldn't ignore. She mentioned an old incident, something he remembered only vaguely, and described it in a way that highlighted its emotional impact rather than the superficial details. He paused, reflecting on the events and how his perception had been incomplete. The more he read her words, the more he recognized the complexity of people's emotions and the hidden layers beneath. Everyday interactions, he began to notice changes in how he interacted with others. He listened more, asked more questions, and gave people space to share without judgment. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but he felt the difference in his heart. Conversations with colleagues, friends, and even strangers became moments of reflection and learning. He realized that empathy was not automatic, but required attention and effort. The sister's careful, honest communication had shown him a model of understanding that he was now trying to practice in his own life, even at home. These insights were making a difference. He was more patient with his child, more attentive to their needs and emotions. He noticed small details he had overlooked before: the way they frowned when frustrated, the way their eyes lit up when they were happy, the little sighs that revealed emotion he hadn't acknowledged. He found himself responding with thoughtfulness, considering not just what they needed physically, but also emotionally. The lessons he was learning through the accidental messages were permeating every corner of his life, influencing how he viewed others and how he responded as their conversations continued. She shared more about her own experiences, her struggles and triumphs. It was not a confession or an intimate disclosure, but a quiet unveiling of truth. She spoke about challenges she had faced with her family, about decisions that had shaped her life, and about lessons learned through hardship. Her words were careful, measured, and full of subtle guidance. He felt a deep respect for her ability to communicate truth without blame, to share perspective without judgment. Each message was a reminder that understanding came from listening, observing and considering experiences beyond one's own. One night, after putting his child to bed, he found himself staring at the phone, reflecting on the messages from the sister. There was something more in her words, a quiet honesty that hinted at a secret, something that had been hidden but was waiting to be revealed in its own time. He felt a mixture of anticipation and anxiety, wondering if he was ready to understand it, if he could handle the truths that might emerge. The thought of uncovering something significant about his past or about the family filled him with a strange combination of fear and curiosity. The next day at work found it difficult to focus again. His mind replayed their previous messages, analyzing each sentence, reading between the lines. There was a subtle tension, an unspoken promise of revelation that made every small ping of the phone feel like a message of significance. He caught himself imagining what she might share next, considering how it would change his perception of the past and his understanding of the people he cared about. He felt a quiet urgency to be ready for whatever she might reveal. When the phone finally buzzed during a short break, he opened the message with care. Her words were deliberate and gentle, revealing hints about his ex's past experiences that he had never been aware of. She spoke of struggles, sacrifices, and moments of vulnerability, painting a picture of resilience and complexity. He felt a mixture of empathy, surprise, and a deep respect for the honesty in her message. It was not easy to read. It challenged many of his assumptions, but it was enlightening, opening a door to understanding that had been firmly closed before. He realized that the sister's words were teaching him lessons in patience, empathy, and observation. They encouraged him to look beyond surface actions and see the motivations and challenges beneath. He began to understand the importance of perspective, the need to consider circumstances before judging, and the value of listening carefully to the experiences of others. Each message was a mirror, reflecting both the complexity of the world and his own limitations in understanding it. At home that evening, he shared a quiet dinner with his child, noticing how the conversation had subtly influenced him. He was more present, attentive, and reflective, responding with care and thoughtfulness. Even in the small routines, helping with homework, listening to stories, or tucking his child in, he found himself applying the lessons he had been learning. Empathy had become more than a concept. It was a practice, shaped by reflection and insight. He also began to notice the importance of timing and discretion. The sister's messages were not just about content, but about delivery, about understanding when and how to communicate effectively. He reflected on his own communication, realizing how often he had rushed, assumed, or acted without full consideration. The subtle art of conveying truth, of revealing perspective without forcing revelation, was a skill he was beginning to appreciate and emulate. Each interaction became a study in patience, careful listening, and thoughtful response. One night, after a particularly thoughtful exchange, he felt a wave of gratitude. The accidental message, which had initially caused anxiety, had become a source of guidance, understanding, and insight. It had opened a path to learning about others, about hidden struggles, and about the complexity of human emotion. He recognized that the journey was ongoing, that each message, each reflection, each interaction contributed to his growth. The process was slow, but steady, shaping him in ways he had never anticipated. He thought about the power of small actions, how a single mistake could lead to unexpected revelation. The accidental message had been a moment of panic and embarrassment, and it had evolved into a catalyst for deep understanding. It was a reminder that life often revealed its truths in subtle ways, that patience and attentiveness could uncover lessons hidden beneath the surface. He felt a quiet determination to continue learning, to remain open to insight, and to practice empathy in every interaction, even as he lay in bed that night. Reflecting on the day, he knew that something significant was unfolding. The sisters' quiet words were revealing a story, a perspective that had remained hidden until now. He felt a mixture of curiosity, nervousness, and anticipation, wondering what would come next and how it would reshape his understanding. The accidental connection had led him to a deeper awareness of human emotion, family dynamics, and the unseen struggles that shape people's choices. He realized that life was teaching him lessons not through grand gestures, but through small, careful moments of communication and reflection. The quiet unfolding of truth, the patient revelation of hidden experiences, was shaping him into a more thoughtful, empathetic, and aware individual. He understood that this journey was far from over, that the messages he exchanged were guiding him through a process of discovery, learning, and growth. As he drifted off to sleep, he felt a quiet sense of hope. The accidental message had revealed more than just conversation. It had opened a window into understanding, compassion, and insight. He knew that tomorrow would bring new messages, new reflections, and perhaps further revelations. He welcomed the journey, ready to face the lessons, the challenges, and the insights that awaited. For the first time in a long while, he felt that he was moving toward clarity, empathy, and understanding, guided by the quiet, honest words of someone he had never expected to learn from. He woke up with a sense of determination that morning, feeling the quiet weight of anticipation. The messages from the sister had opened doors of understanding, but he knew there was more to uncover. He prepared breakfast with care, making sure his child had what they liked, and noticed the small ways his child's smiles and laughter lifted his own spirits. The accidental message had become more than a mistake, had become a bridge to reflection, learning, and deeper understanding. He felt the need to move carefully, respecting boundaries while also embracing the clarity he had begun to gain. During the day, his mind wandered constantly to the sister's messages. Each sentence, each hint, carried layers of meaning he wanted to understand fully. Her words had not just informed him about the past, they had challenged him to rethink how he approached relationships and human behavior. He began to recognize the importance of confronting truth, of addressing misunderstandings rather than letting them fester. For the first time in a long while, he considered approaching his ex not with anger or blame, but with curiosity and the desire for clarity. He knew this would be delicate, and he also knew that the sister's guidance had been invaluable in preparing him for it. After work, he picked up his child and noticed how quickly the small joys of life brought him comfort. Walking through the park, he watched them play and laugh, appreciating the simplicity and purity of the moment. He thought about how the sister's calm, thoughtful words had quietly reshaped his perspective. Understanding the hidden struggles of others had made him more patient, more attentive, and more compassionate. It was a change he felt deeply, though subtly. It affected every interaction he had. That evening, once his child was asleep, he sat on the couch with his phone, staring at the message thread. There was a sense that the next exchange might be significant. Her messages had gradually revealed a secret, something she had been hinting at with careful precision. He felt nervous and excited at the same time. This revelation could change his understanding of the past, of relationships, and even of his own actions. He typed a careful, respectful response, trying not to rush or push for answers. Waited. When her reply appeared, it was measured and calm, but it carried a depth that immediately caught his attention. She spoke about events from the past, moments he had remembered differently, and provided context that he had never considered. He felt a mix of surprise, guilt, and understanding. The way she shared it was neither accusatory nor emotional. It was quiet, deliberate, and honest. Her words revealed family dynamics and personal challenges that had influenced decisions in ways he had never realized. It was humbling, enlightening, and deeply emotional. He spent hours reflecting on the revelation. It was not just about the past relationship, but about understanding the hidden layers of people he cared about. He thought about his own choices, his actions, and the assumptions he had made without knowing the full story. There was a growing clarity, a recognition that empathy and understanding required effort and attention. He also recognized the courage it must have taken for her to share these truths, even indirectly, and he felt a deep respect for her honesty. Over the next few days, he contemplated the best way to approach his ex. He wanted clarity, closure, and understanding, not conflict. He drafted messages in his mind, thinking carefully about the words he would use, the tone he would take. He wanted to speak from a place of understanding rather than anger. The sister's guidance, her subtle hints and insights, had prepared him to navigate this delicate situation. He realized that patience and reflection were crucial, and he was determined to handle the conversation with care and respect. Meanwhile, the accidental friendship with the sister deepened. They exchanged messages about everyday life, small insights, and quiet reflections. He felt a sense of trust building, a mutual respect that grew with each exchange. It was not romantic or personal in a conventional sense, but a deep connection based on understanding, honesty, and shared reflection. He appreciated her wisdom and the calm way she communicated, guiding him without judgment and helping him navigate the complexities of his past. He also noticed changes in himself. He was calmer, more thoughtful, and more patient. At work, he listened more carefully to colleagues, considered perspectives before reacting, became more aware of emotional cues in interactions. At home, he approached his child with more attention, noticing small details, responding to needs, and creating moments of connection. He realized that understanding others began with understanding oneself, and the accidental messages had set him on a path of personal growth. The day he decided to message his ex was filled with tension. He sat at his desk, staring at the screen, choosing words carefully. He wanted honesty, clarity, and understanding, without blame or resentment. He took a deep breath and hit send. The minutes that followed were filled with anticipation and nervous energy. Then, a reply came. It was measured and thoughtful, showing that she had reflected on her own actions and experiences as well. The conversation that followed was intense but calm, a dialogue of understanding rather than confrontation. They addressed past misunderstandings, shared feelings, and clarified decisions that had caused pain. It was difficult, but it brought a sense of closure and insight that he had longed for. After the conversation, he felt a profound sense of relief and clarity. The revelations from the sister, combined with this dialogue, had allowed him to see the past with new eyes. He understood the motivations, challenges, and struggles that had shaped decisions and actions. It did not erase the pain, but it contextualized it, allowing him to move forward with empathy and understanding. He felt gratitude for the accidental connection that had led to this moment of insight. He continued his exchanges with the sister, now with a sense of deeper trust and mutual respect. Their conversations remained thoughtful, reflective, and meaningful. They discussed family dynamics, personal growth, and the subtle lessons of life. He valued these moments not for casual conversation, but for the insights and guidance they provided. Each message reinforced lessons of patience, empathy, and understanding. He felt that he was learning not only about others, but about himself, his choices, and the way he approached life. Even in his daily routines, He felt the influence of these revelations. Simple tasks, like cooking dinner or helping with homework, carried more meaning. He approached interactions with his child, colleagues, and friends with increased attention and care. He noticed emotional cues, listened with intention, and responded thoughtfully. The accidental message had led to a profound shift in his awareness, reshaping his approach to life in subtle but meaningful ways. One evening, while sitting alone with his phone, he reflected on the journey so far. From a simple accidental message to thoughtful exchanges, revelations, and conversations, he had learned about empathy, patience, and understanding. He recognized the value of careful communication and the importance of considering perspectives beyond his own. He felt a quiet confidence that he could navigate relationships more wisely and thoughtfully. Appreciating the complexity of human emotions and the hidden struggles people carried, the secret that had been revealed gradually through the sister's careful words had transformed his understanding. It was not a dramatic revelation, but a quiet truth that reshaped his view of the past. He felt gratitude, respect, and a sense of connection to both his ex and her sister. The accidental message had been a small event, but its impact was profound, guiding him toward growth, clarity, and understanding as he lay in bed that night. Reflecting on the day, he realized that he had changed. He was more patient, more thoughtful, and more empathetic. He understood the value of listening, reflecting, and considering the hidden struggles of others. The accidental message had led to lessons he could not have learned otherwise, shaping his approach to life, relationships, and parenthood. He felt a quiet hope that the path ahead would continue to offer insight, growth, and understanding, and he welcomed it with an open heart. The days that followed brought a sense of calm and clarity he had not felt in years. The revelations from the sister, the conversations with his ex, and the reflections that had grown from a simple, accidental message had created a new perspective. He approached each morning with a quiet awareness, ready to face challenges with patience and empathy. His child's laughter and curiosity became even more precious, reminders that life was built on small moments of love, attention, and presence. He found himself noticing things he had overlooked for years. The small gestures of kindness from strangers, the struggles of colleagues, and even the quiet efforts of friends were now visible in ways they had not been before. He realized that understanding others required not just listening, but observing, reflecting, and connecting the dots of experiences and emotions. The sister's careful, thoughtful messages had been a model, showing him how subtle communication could reveal truths without force or judgment. One evening, after a particularly busy day, he sat with his phone and reflected on the journey so far. The accidental message had been the spark, the beginning of an unexpected path that led him to understanding, empathy, and personal growth. He thought about the challenges his ex had faced, the hidden struggles within the family, and the lessons he had learned from listening carefully and reflecting deeply. He felt a sense of gratitude for the guidance he had received and for the patience of the sister, who had shared truths without pressure or judgment. The relationship with the sister had grown into a quiet friendship. It was built on honesty, mutual respect, and shared reflection. They exchanged thoughts on life, personal growth, and the subtle dynamics of relationships. He valued these conversations immensely, not as casual chats, but as opportunities to understand human emotion and resilience. Her words had helped him navigate the past with clarity, and now they continued to guide him in approaching life and relationships with wisdom and care. He noticed the change in himself, most during moments with his child. He was more present, more patient, and more attentive to the small details that mattered. Listening to their stories, helping with homework, or simply sharing quiet moments felt richer, deeper, and more meaningful. The accidental message had indirectly taught him the importance of empathy, presence, and attentiveness, shaping not just his perspective, but also his daily actions. Over time, he began to notice how the insights he had gained affected other areas of his life. Work interactions became smoother as he listened more and responded thoughtfully. Friendships strengthened as he became more aware of emotional cues and the importance of consideration. Even simple interactions with strangers, like holding a door or offering a smile, carried more meaning as he recognized the impact of small gestures and awareness. The lessons from the sister's messages had seeped into every facet of his life, quietly transforming him. One weekend, he decided to visit his ex, not with confrontation, but with understanding. They talked openly about the past, about mistakes, and about what had shaped their decisions. The conversation was difficult, filled with moments of tension, reflection, and honest emotion, but it was constructive. He felt relief and closure, understanding actions and choices that had once been confusing or painful. The sister's guidance had been invaluable, preparing him to approach the situation with patience, empathy, and clarity. After this visit, he felt lighter, freer, and more at peace with the past. The accidental message, which had once caused anxiety and panic, led to a series of events that brought insight, understanding, and personal growth. He realized that life often delivered lessons in unexpected ways, and that openness to learning reflection and empathy could turn mistakes into opportunities for transformation. As the weeks passed, he continued to cultivate the connection with the sister, exchanging messages that were thoughtful, reflective, and meaningful. They shared stories, discussed life challenges, and offered insights without pressure or judgment. These exchanges became a source of calm and guidance, reminding him of the value of careful communication, empathy, and understanding. He appreciated her wisdom and the subtle way she guided him, helping him navigate both past relationships and present challenges. He also noticed that his approach to parenting had fundamentally changed. He was more patient, understanding, and emotionally present. He responded thoughtfully to challenges, offered guidance without harshness, valued the emotional well-being of his child as much as their practical needs. The lessons from the accidental messages had shown him that empathy and awareness were crucial, shaping how he connected with his child and approached daily life. Even in solitude, he felt the influence of the journey. Moments of reflection became regular, allowing him to process emotions, consider perspectives, and learn from experiences. He understood that growth required intentional effort, that understanding others and oneself was a continuous process. The sister's messages had taught him that subtlety, patience, and honesty were more powerful than force or argument. Each day became an opportunity to practice these lessons, to refine his empathy, and to strengthen his understanding of human emotion. He began to see life differently. Small challenges became opportunities for learning. Conflicts were approached with patience, and every interaction carried a chance for understanding. The accidental message, once a source of stress, had become a guide, showing him how to navigate relationships with thoughtfulness and care. He felt gratitude for the chance encounter, realizing how profoundly it had shaped his perspective and approach to life. One night, he sat quietly with his phone, thinking about the journey and the lessons learned. The accidental message had revealed hidden truths, guided him toward empathy, and allowed him to approach relationships with understanding and care. He felt a sense of completion, a quiet satisfaction that he had grown, learned, and adapted in ways that would shape his future interactions and choices. The connection with the sister, though unexpected, had been transformative, showing him the power of honest, careful communication and the impact of subtle insights. Looking at his child asleep in the next room, he felt a sense of purpose and clarity. He understood the importance of presence, empathy, and attention in nurturing relationships. The lessons from the accidental message, combined with conversations and reflections, had reshaped him into a more thoughtful, aware, and compassionate person. He realized that growth was not always loud or dramatic. It was often quiet, subtle, and revealed through careful reflection and understanding. As he drifted to sleep that night, he felt hope for the future. The accidental message had opened doors he never knew existed, leading him to understanding, empathy, and personal growth. He knew that life would continue to present challenges, but he felt equipped with the patience, insight, and emotional awareness to navigate them. He welcomed the journey ahead, grateful for the unexpected lessons and the quiet guidance that had transformed his approach to life, relationships, and parenting. Life after the series of revelations and conversations felt different to him. almost lighter. He woke up each morning with a sense of purpose and awareness that had been absent before the accidental message changed the course of his life. His routines remained the same on the surface: preparing breakfast, dropping his child off at school, commuting to work, but the way he experienced each moment was transformed. He noticed subtleties he had ignored, the emotions behind words, and the quiet struggles people carried. The relationship with the sister had grown into a deep, respectful connection. They no longer exchanged messages simply as a curiosity or to fill time. Their conversations had depth, reflection, and warmth. She offered guidance through subtle suggestions, insights, and stories that did not press him but illuminated paths he had not considered. Through her words, he learned patience, understanding, and the quiet power of empathy. It was remarkable how an accidental message could lead to such growth, shifting his understanding of relationships, family, and personal responsibility. At work, he found himself approaching challenges with a newfound calm. Where he might have previously responded hastily or reacted emotionally, he now paused, considered the perspectives of others, and approached conflicts with thoughtful strategies. His colleagues began noticing a subtle change in him, a more measured, thoughtful demeanor, a sense of patience and understanding in interactions that had previously been hurried and transactional. He realized that growth often manifested in small, steady ways rather than sudden, dramatic changes. Parenthood remained the most profound area of transformation. He spent evenings with his child more intentionally, observing their moods, listening with care, and responding with empathy. He learned to recognize the quiet signs of emotions, understanding when his child needed attention, reassurance, or simply a moment of shared silence. The lessons from the sister's messages, which taught him about patience, empathy, and understanding hidden struggles, filtered into these interactions, making his parenting richer and more mindful. He also began noticing his own emotional responses. Where he had previously felt frustration or impatience, he now felt curiosity and reflection. When challenges arose, he asked himself what underlying emotions or struggles might be influencing the situation, whether at work, with friends, or at home. This approach helped him respond with compassion rather than irritation, making interactions smoother and more meaningful. The accidental message, once a source of anxiety, had become a guide for life itself. The lessons extended beyond relationships. He started to see life itself as a series of subtle messages, each situation carrying a lesson if he paid attention. Traffic jams, long lines at the store, minor conflicts each could teach patience, observation, or emotional awareness. He realized that life's challenges were not obstacles but opportunities to practice understanding and empathy. This shift in perspective made daily struggles feel less burdensome and more like chances to grow and learn. Evenings became times of reflection. He would sit quietly after his child was asleep, thinking about the day, the conversations he had, and the subtle lessons he had observed. He wrote notes in his mind about insights and reflections, sometimes returning to them later for deeper thought. The accidental message had initiated a chain of learning that he now embraced as part of daily life. Each reflection strengthened his awareness and emotional intelligence, helping him navigate the complexities of human interaction with greater ease. His relationship with the sister remained platonic, but profoundly supportive. They shared perspectives on life, discussed personal growth, and offered thoughtful guidance without judgment. He found comfort in her ability to communicate truth gently, revealing insights without pressure. Her influence encouraged him to continue his journey of understanding, reflection, and self-improvement. He began seeing the beauty of relationships that were not based on obligation, guilt, or expectation, but on mutual respect, honesty, and empathy. As weeks turned into months, he noticed a steady transformation in his approach to life. He reacted less impulsively, observed more carefully, and listened with attention. He became aware of emotions, both his own and others, and learned to navigate them with patience and understanding. The accidental message, a seemingly minor event, had sparked a journey of self-awareness and growth that touched every part of his life. It reminded him that even mistakes could carry lessons, guiding one toward clarity and wisdom. One afternoon, as he walked in the park with his child, he felt a profound sense of gratitude. The little moments' laughter, shared stories, quiet walks had become more meaningful. He noticed the beauty of simple joys and the importance of being present. He realized that life's richness came not from grand events, but from mindfulness, attention, and compassion. His child's happiness became a mirror for his own growth. Reflecting the patience and understanding he had cultivated, he also began to mend old relationships. Conversations with friends and family were handled with more thoughtfulness and empathy. Misunderstandings that might have escalated in the past were now approached with care, discussion, and understanding. He found that many conflicts dissolved when met with patience and reflection. The accidental message had taught him indirectly that listening and observation were as important as words themselves. True understanding often came from quiet attentiveness and the willingness to see beyond the surface. Even personal introspection deepened. He considered his past choices and the motivations behind them. Where he had once judged himself harshly, he now reflected with compassion and curiosity. He asked why he had acted as he did, what lessons he could take, and how he could continue growing. The sister's messages, the dialogues with his ex, and his reflections combined to create a framework of understanding, helping him to approach life with a thoughtful and measured heart. One quiet evening, he received a message from the sister that was unusually reflective. She spoke about the subtle lessons life offered, the importance of noticing the small truths, and the value of patience and empathy. He read it slowly, savoring the wisdom in her words, realizing how far he had come from the anxiety of the accidental message. Her gentle guidance had shaped his thinking and behavior profoundly. He felt gratitude, not just for the information she had shared, but for the way she had taught him to observe, reflect, and understand without pressure or judgment.